All right, so we're talking about Moses. For the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about Moses. And we're going to be talking about how God is present in Moses' life. And then subsequently, how God is present in our lives. The theme for this month, if I needed to call a theme, is Great is Thy Faithfulness. Great is Thy Faithfulness, which we're going to be singing in a little bit. But I need to set up the story for us. So we know that, you remember the story in Genesis, we're now bleeding into Exodus, the second chapter, and by the way, I got it wrong in the bulletin, it's Exodus 2, 1 through 10. Not chapters 1, but 2, 1 through 10. But the story leading up to this is Joseph has died, so has all his brothers. Jacob's died, everybody's died, but they've been very prolific. And they have multiplied beautifully in the area. And now there is this new king in power. A king who does not know Joseph, didn't know the stories of who Joseph was or what he came to do, doesn't know the stories of all that had happened before. And so now you have this new king in power, this Pharaoh, and you have these children of Israel who are now in Egypt who've lost their identity. They don't know who they are or whose they are. And they're just sort of lost. But then you have this Pharaoh who maybe emotionally insecure might be a good word to describe him. He's not really good at just claiming his spot in the midst of people, but he's very aware that he can be overthrown at any point if the number of Hebrews outweighs his numbers, right? So he's very concerned about that. He's intimidated by their numbers. And so he says to the midwives, when you go to the Hebrew women to help them give birth, if it is a boy, kill it. If it is a girl, it can live, but if it's a boy, kill it. Well, they realized later on that the boys were still alive. So he called in all the midwives and he said to them, "What's going on here? I gave you an order." And the midwives said, "Yes. Do you know when we go to those Hebrew women, they are just such a strong breed that they pop those babies out before we can even get there." So Pharaoh's like, okay. So it's sort of the Bill Lakely. So the Pharaoh says, okay, so from now on, if you see a male boy, child, infant, throw them in the Nile. Get rid of them. Okay, so that's the law. That's the rule that's set up. And that's where we begin our story today. Exodus chapter 2, verses 1 through 10. Now a man in the house of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it amongst the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her slave girl to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered. And the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take the baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the baby and nursed him. And when the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew Let us pray. Oh God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be pleasing and acceptable to you, O God, our rock, our strength, and our Redeemer. Amen. So God dealt well with the midwives who acted shrewdly. And now we have Moses' mother who did the unspeakable thing. Can you imagine giving birth to a child and then having to, knowing that you can't hide this baby any longer, and if this baby is discovered, this baby will surely die. Giving it the only hope she could by putting it in a basket, making it a floating ark for this baby. The only hope she could, knowing that at best the baby had 1 to 2 days to live. At best. I can't imagine doing that as a mom. I can't imagine what that must have been like. But it was her best hope. And she sent Moses' sister Miriam to hide in the bulrushes and just sort of watch and report back to her all that she saw and all that she heard. The progress with baby Moses, what was going on with the baby. And so she did. That's one side of the story of what's happening. The other is now we have Pharaoh, the same guy who said, kill babies. His daughter is coming down to take a bath in the Nile River. And as she gets down there, maybe she heard the baby's cries. Maybe she saw the basket. Maybe for whatever reason, it became obvious to her that something piqued her curiosity in the corner of the Nile, in the bulrushes. And they went and got the basket, and when they opened it up, there was this beautiful baby boy. Now, when you see a baby, now, I don't know about you guys, when I see a baby here at church, it's not my baby. Bexley is not my baby. But let me tell you, at a moment's notice, I would take Bexley. Right? I mean, that's just the way it is. Grayson's the same way. Bronxon's the same way. These little big babies, my goodness, they steal your heart, right? And they capture you from the word go. They just do. That's what babies do. Moses is no different. Lying in this basket, she opens it up, and he had already stolen her heart. And then she made the statement, a true statement. This must be one of the Hebrew babies. This must be one of the Hebrew babies. Now, by law, what was she supposed to do? Flip the basket and let the baby figure out if he lives or dies down the river, right? That was, by law, what she was supposed to do. But instead, she said, think I'll keep the baby. Think I'll keep the baby. And Miriam, in her quick-wittedness, said, oh man, let me find somebody to nurse that baby for you. Would you like me to do that? Well, yeah, Infamil was not a product that you got off the shelves back then, right? So you had to have a nurse to do that. So Miriam goes, and who does she get? The mama. So the mama comes up. This could be a Mother's Day sermon, I think. But the mama comes, and get this, the princess hires Moses' mother to nurse Moses and even pays her to take care of her own child. This could not have gotten any better, right? So I wish somebody paid me to be at home with my child. But anyway, long story to short, let's get back on track. So she's paid to take care of Moses. And as she's doing this, can you imagine what it must have been like? Nursing her own child, knowing that she was in the care of the princess, And so now Moses, when he hits 3, goes out of Moses' mom's direct care, even though we think she's probably still there and actively involved. But now he's adopted by the princess. The princess adopts Moses, calls him Moses because she drew him out of the water. And as he begins to grow, can you imagine what the Pharaoh must have been thinking? What that must have been like to be the Pharaoh? So now there's this 3-year-old running around the palace, right? And this is the Pharaoh who said, kill them all. But, well, if my daughter wants this one, we'll keep this, kind of thing. Can you imagine Moses sitting in his little booster seat at the royal table? Or riding on his Toys R Us chariot around the throne room? I mean, imagine this Hebrew child being raised in the palace. And don't you know that Moses' mother, every chance she got, she told this baby growing up about Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Joseph and all of his history. And every chance she had an opportunity, she shared the name Yahweh. She told him about God. She told him about his roots. She told him about his faith. She told him about his people. Just sort of a side thing. The Hebrew mother faithfully told her child about God. Who's going to tell our children? Who's going to whisper the name of Jesus into our children's ears today? Who's going to tell today's children the stories of Jesus, the stories of faith, the stories of hope? You see, in the midst of all that's going on there, she continued to whisper the name Yahweh. She continued to whisper about the child's past, the child's history, the child's life, the child's legacy behind him, and the child's future. Great is thy faithfulness. If it had been written way back then, she might have sung that to them. Great is thy faithfulness. God is with you. God is with you. You see, in the midst of plenty and privilege, who will keep the name of God alive? In the midst of the host of the secular gods and the prolific lures and the growing materialistic expectations, who will say to our children, remember that you are a child of God. Remember that God alone is your strength. And in the midst of the trappings of luxury and expansive lifestyles, who will whisper the sacred name in every ear of every child? See, Moses came from crazy beginnings. How many babies can really say they floated in a basket? Really? But the message is really clear. God is intimately involved in the life of Moses. God was present with that mom when she had to make an incredibly hard decision to let her son go, to put him in that basket. God was with that sister who on the spot thought of how she could pursue the princess. God was with that princess who, instead of flipping the basket and letting the baby go down the Nile, felt something and fell in love in that moment. God was present in those moments, in those experiences with Moses all throughout his life. And God has been present with us. So here's the thing we got to talk about today. I'll go to this side. I've been favoritizing you all or whatever. Showing favoritism over there. Here's what we've got to talk about today. In your lives, you have experienced terrible things. Some of you have experienced addiction or know family members who have gone through addictions. Some of you have experienced terrible health concerns or have buried loved ones with health issues. Some of you have experienced financial loss or great financial gain. Some of you have experienced abusive relationships in your life. Whether it be sexual, physical, emotional, or mental, it does not matter. Some of you have experienced some hard stuff in your life. Take just a second. You know that list, right? Some of you, we're going to have to take off the shoes to count. There's so many, right? And some of you will barely get on one hand the hard stuff you've lived through. But here's the deal. God was present with you in those events in your life. God was ever present with you when you were born. As the song says, God was there to hear your warning cry. God was there before you drew your first breath, and God will be there when you draw your last to welcome you into heaven. Now, let's make a leap. If God has been present with you through this, God is who brought you through that hard stuff, through those issues of abuse, through those financial difficulties. You are here today because God brought you through. Amen? No. God brought you through. Amen. Yes. God brought you through. It was not because you did anything. You say, well, I've earned this much money and I've been able to do this and that I've pulled myself up by your bootstraps. That does not exist. You cannot pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. It is God pulling you up by your bootstraps. That money that you have in your pocket is not your money. God gave you that money. God gave you the abilities to earn that money, to build the house that you built, to build the life that you built. It is all God's. God was with you before you knew who God was, and God will be with you long after you're dead. God, it is God. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Long before you knew who God was at work in your life. And just like God was with Moses and raised him up and was with him every single step of the way through today's story, God was with you and brought you to where you are. Let's make another leap. What did Moses do in his life? Tell me some big things. Hello. The children answered this question, so y'all already been given the answers. Wait, part of the Red Sea. What else? The burning bush. 10 Commandments. Anybody else? First service, they brought out that he killed man. The plagues. Okay. So, all that Moses has done and been a part of, God was preparing him for those, right? Can you imagine what if the princess said, nope, you're going to flip that basket? Not likely. What if they had said, no, we're going to follow the laws, we're going to follow the rules? Where would we be? Where would we be? But thank God for a mom who was shrewd. Thank God for a sister who could think on her feet. Thank God for a princess who even went against her father's laws. God brought them this far. And we know what happens in his story. So go with me on this one. We believe God's brought us this far. My friends, we are all Moseses. You are a Moses, I am a Moses. God has brought us this far. But let me ask this question. Who are the children of Israel that you need to be an advocate for? Who are the people that kept wanting to say no, guys, really, you got the wrong guy. Right? I stutter, and if I don't, I'm going to start because I'm not going to go and do that. I'm not the person for you, God. And if I go, I don't have the tools I need to do it. So how in the world am I going to do this? God took away every single one of his excuses, and who ended up going? Moses. My friends, God has called each of us to do great and wonderful things. We are called to part the Red Seas for people to get through. We are called to be those to lead children out of Israel. Maybe not physically, but figuratively. What is the calling on your life? Maybe it's to preach. Maybe it's to teach. Maybe it's to be a counselor. Maybe it's to serve in our Helping Hands ministry through food and clothing. Maybe it's to be a driver for the Council on Aging. Or maybe it's to do whatever. Maybe it's to volunteer at the hospital. Whatever it may be. Maybe it's to be a prayer warrior. These kneeling pads get used way too little. And maybe it's time to start using them. Maybe it's time to start getting on our knees. Maybe that's your calling. My friends, we are all called to be Moseses. And we are all called to lead the children out of bondage. Who is it for you? Who is it for you? Maybe it's a somebody. Maybe it's a something. Maybe it's a certain situation. But we are all called to do great things for God. What we know is God was present with us way before. And great is our faithfulness. God will be ever present with us. Right now. And all the way to the end and beyond. That's the God we serve. That's the God we serve. And what we also believe is that if God calls you to it, God will see you through it. I believe that with everything in me. And I also believe that every single person in this room, from little Bexley on up, we have a calling on our lives. We're not called to be pew potatoes. Pew warmers. Matter of fact, I believe God would be thrilled if we got rid of all the pews, all the chairs, and this was a gathering place to be sent out. Because, my friends, this may be the church building, but the church is the people doing God's work out there. Doing God's work out there. Maybe it's in Africa, but maybe it's in the shadow of this very steeple. Where are you called? Where are the people you are called to help deliver? Because you are called to greatness. Because you're a child of God.